Are my grading standards for comic books too high? Yeah, they are. We're going to open up this box of comics and take a look inside and see if the grades of these books meet my expectations. So it's interesting, as I'm buying comic books, I'm building relationships with certain sellers online, certain stores, tracking data. I end up building up a certain expectation level with where I'm spending my money and who I'm giving my money to, and the comic books that I'm receiving. And it was interesting because I had contacted a particular seller on Atomic Avenue. This seller's name is Wolfman, and prior to my last order that I did receive, the seller contacted me and said something along the lines that he's very aware of me as a buyer and wants to make sure that my expectations are met in terms of the grades that he's assigning to his books. And I'm trying not to read too much in between the lines here. But I do believe what he's saying is I'm being a little bit too critical of his books, and maybe he's not being as precise as he should be. So, wink, wink, nod, nod. These books may not be near mint, but they could be close. I don't know. And really, this boiled down to one particular issue that I had a problem with, where the book looked perfectly fine in the bag and board, and I took it out, and when I turned it over, the top back had some stains and discolorations, and I contacted him with some photos, and I said, this is not a near mint book. It's very fine at best. And we went through the process of partial refund and the whole thing. And he's always willing to take these books back if need be. And that was one of the bits of communication that I received, is he said, if they don't meet my standards, he's happy to go ahead and process a refund if I send the books back. So on one hand, I'm assuming a little bit more risk here when I'm purchasing from sellers like this. But on the other, I do feel a little safer because they are offering a refund. Now, the problem is if you continually buy books from the same seller and say that these are books not, these book conditions are not as of a particular quality that you're expecting, or you're a harsh grader, or whatever the case may be, eventually you're not going to be allowed to buy from that seller, right? So there has to be a compromise where you as a buyer are happy, but the seller is also happy with the transaction. I know if I was selling on eBay and one particular buyer kept constantly complaining about my books, I'd start to have a difficult time selling there. So I want to make sure that the sellers on every platform are happy with me, and I want to make sure that I'm getting good quality books. And honestly, at the end of the day, if my data is showing that a particular seller is not delivering books of a particular quality, I'm just going to stop buying from them. And there are a couple of Atomic Avenue sellers already that I've cut ties with. Not because they did anything wrong, not because they're bad people. It's just because their books are not near mint. And I'm trying to find the sellers that are actually listing near mint books, and I'm willing to pay a premium, as you've seen from my past videos, especially when it comes to Mile High Comics and some other places. So let's get to the unboxing. Let's look at the comic books. Let's stop talking about it and see what I got inside. And then we'll go through the order analysis and take a look and see if this order was worth my time and money. All right, here is the box received from Wolfman, Art Wolfson from Georgia. Sent priority mail 2-day, which is great. Sent in this, it's not a comic book mailer. You can actually hear the contents shift around. Hopefully hear that a little bit. So hopefully they're all wrapped securely in bubble wrap. So let me go ahead and open this up. Nice. So he put a priority mail padded envelope around the books. So that's, the contents were still sort of shifting around in there, but there are the books inside. slide these out. All right, packing this, and here we go. So no tape, no nothing, just the padded envelope here. So let's see what we got. This is, let's see here. This is a 10-book order. Mostly Amazing Spider-Man. And one Web of Spider-Man, one X-Men, and a couple Fantastic Four. So these are right up my alley. This is exactly what I like to order. And let's take a look at the books. So here is that one issue of X-Men. It's X-Men 170, a book I'm missing in my X-Men run. And looks to be in, I would say, from first glance, looks to be in near min. I'm already seeing a couple of color breaking issues right there, but looks pretty good. So that's X-Men 170, Great Callisto Storm cover, John Romita Jr. If you're familiar with that style and that age of X-Men, then that really jumps out at you as a classic Romita Jr. Early 80s X-Men. Here's Fantastic Four 259. Always picking up these Byrne Fantastic Four issues, especially with Doctor Doom featured there like he is. Great kind of magenta, purplish pink cover there. 3 against Doomsday. So that's the Fantastic Four without Mr. Fantastic there on the cover facing Doctor Doom. I think I have multiple copies of this. Still trying to find a 9.8 candidate to send in. Fantastic Four 254. This is another book that I keep picking up. This is a tough book with Matrakora, I believe is that character's name. But anyway, his cape, the shadows or the solid black cover of the cape, there's a lot of typical fading and color breaking that goes on at the bottom there. So we'll open this one up and take a look. This one looks to be in pretty good shape. So far so good. A little bit of an issue there. I don't know if it's dust or a scratch or something in the book, but not too bad so far. All right, so let's get into some of the Spider-Man. This is Spider-Man 253. This book had picked up some recent attention and value. This is a tie-in to, I think it's the issue before the gang war. I think it's like a 4 or 6 part storyline that ran through this timeline of Amazing Spider-Man in early to mid 80s. This was a book that I'd had, but bought it for like 25 cents at my LCS when I was a kid, and they would take a black crayon and draw across here when there was not a book that it was basically like a reader copy. And I used to pick those up for 25 cents and read those. And this was just a book I never replaced, and now I have. So this book is suffering from that little bit of spine curling or spine bumping, trying to get better at my terminology here. This would definitely benefit from a press, but the spine looks super, super nice and intact there. Again, tough with the bag and the reflection on the camera, but this looks to be a book that could just benefit from a quick press. And that's something that I'm trying to figure out too as I'm learning how to press, is which books require humidity and which don't. Sometimes if it's just that spine curl, you just need to apply the heat with the quick press and that should take care of it. Here is ASM 251. Lots of Hobgoblin in the sort of 240s through the 280s of Amazing Spider-Man. So I'm picking those up anytime there's a Hobgoblin reference or part of the story here with Hobgoblin. This looks to be a great book. Some color rubbing or dirt there, or potentially just some of the ink coming through the page. I'm not exactly sure at first glance, but looks to be in great condition. So pretty happy with this one too. Another book that as I'm filling out my ASM run just didn't have. So I love going in and backfilling those. This is a book I've picked up before, ASM 241. I really dislike this cover a lot. I think it's just ugly, and I don't like the colors. I think the art is fine, but just the facial expression on the Vulture here, I just don't like it. I get that it's supposed to be Spider-Man looking at him or something, but I just don't, just not a fan. But I like to pick this book up on the cheap, as it does have some value in a high grade. And I'm honest, I, no offense to somebody who can draw and create art like that, but it is what it is. I'm not a fan of that cover. So this book is interesting. I didn't realize that I bought another one. This is ASM 195, listed in near mint. It's awfully miswrapped, as you could see here. And I had purchased a copy of this earlier on, and it also was miswrapped. And I pressed it, and I screwed it up. So I don't know if this one at first glance is that near mint copy that I'm looking for. This probably is going to be in the 8.5 to 9.2 range, but at least I have a backup copy in case the one that I screwed up. And what's happening now when I'm pressing some of these books is I'm getting some what was it called? It's not staple crunch. It's like, and it's not staple pushing either. But the staple is basically disappearing, and what that means is the staple is going in towards the book because the cover is falling over and getting pressed down, and then there's this little indentation where it literally looks like the staples disappeared if you hold the book up like this. So I'm trying to figure out what's going on there. I think I'm just over humidifying the books at this point. So this was a book that had a really wavy cover. My other copy. So again, happy to have a backup here. This is the second appearance of Black Cat. So if you're specking on Black Cat in Spider-Man 4 and can't afford her first appearance in 194, then 195 is a good book. Here's ASM 173. What's interesting too, you'll see sometimes they're newsstand, sometimes they're direct. They're not really broken out that way as far as I can tell on Atomic Avenue. You just kind of you get what you get. So if you're in the market for newsstands or directs, then you might want to target some of these books and hope you flip that coin. Request a scan, see what the seller says. I'm not a newsstand or direct sort of collector. I don't target, the rarer version depending on the era. I don't really, honestly, it's not something I care about. I understand the rarity and how newsstands were more abundant. And then it shifted to direct and newsstands became rare, but I just don't care. So to me, this is ASM 173. It is technically the newsstand, but to me, it's just Amazing Spider-Man 173. This one has a slight miswrap, but looks to be in really good shape, really good condition here. So Molten Man. Molten Man is, I think, more famous for the covers of ASM that he's on that are super hard to get in a high grade more than the character himself. Last book is Amazing Spider-Man 170. So this is the oldest book that I picked up. Again, newsstand. Don't care if there's a direct or not. This is ASM 170 to me from 1977. And yeah, at first glance looks pretty good. Not bad. So those are the books. Let me show you the order here in my spreadsheet. And if need be, I'll bust some of them out and take a look at the grading. But let's take a look at the particulars around what I paid for these books, and then why I targeted them. And then also just kind of overall, if they all pop to be a 9.4, was it worth my time and my money to buy those specific books from the seller? But at first glance, they look to be pretty good in the bag and board. Again, it all depends when you take them out. They also could have those stains in the back. So I will grade those at some point. But let's take a look at the order here. All right, so here's the order. In the very first thing I noticed is I said this was a 10-book order. I ordered Web of Spider-Man number 5, and it was not included. You saw me unbox it. I went through the books. It wasn't there. A $4.50 book, so I'm not going to cry about it, but I'll have to contact the seller, which I didn't want to do because I contacted him with this first order, and I complained about a book not being near mint. We resolved the issue amicably, but after I placed my second order, which is this order here, that's when I got contacted about my standards being too high for grading. So I'm already have kind of one strike against me, I would say, even though it's my right to say these books aren't near mint. But like I said, I'm trying to keep a friendly and business-like relationship with these sellers. And unfortunately, I already have to contact the seller about a missing book. Again, it's my right as a buyer. He's supposed to fulfill the order. He took my money, so he owes me the book or the money back. And I'm sure we'll work it out, but it's just one of those things that I wanted to avoid. I wanted to have this be a clean order here. So these are the books I ordered, and this is the total price I paid for the order, $143.50. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through and just take a look at some of the numbers and why I targeted these books specifically, to see kind of where the value is on these. All right, so I have all the numbers plugged in. So let's see, I ordered this back on December 22nd. That was the total cost. And then we see some calculation errors here. That's because there are no grades for these books yet. So here is in column U, this is the cover price fair market value. Again, we'll get to CGC here in a moment. And we'll see, here's my total cost in column Z. And then my raw profit. Again, if it's negative, it's not. So in this case, Amazing Spider-Man 170 cost me $24. And the fair market value on this book is currently $7.58, according to cover price. So some cases I'm going to kind of make out on fair market value. In other cases, I'm not. When I'm buying, I'm not always taking into consideration just whether or not I'm getting it for less than fair market value. I'm really looking at the sort of potential value that I'm adding. And by that, I mean, if I did score this at a 9.4, it's probably inherently greater than the cover price fair market value. If it's not, if it's more like a 7.5 to 8.5, then I can compare it to the cover price fair market value, and I feel like that's a fair comparison. But what I'm looking for is the CGC potential profit, meaning if these books are 9.4s and they're graded as 9.4s, then what is the value that I'm adding to my collection by buying these in a higher grade? So I'm spending more money, taking more of a risk to get books in a higher grade to potentially add more value, but in the end, the risk is not as high as if I were just blindly picking off books from eBay, Instagram, or some other platform. All right, so let's take a look at some of these books and some of the values here if we start to plug them in. So I have not graded these, but we'll start to see as I put in my grade, and we'll kind of go in reverse order here, which is what I like to do. And actually, let's talk about that Web of Spider-Man number 5 that I didn't get. So if I did get that book and we're a 9.4, then the CGC value is 35, and my profit is a couple of bucks there. So not a huge score, not a huge loss anyway. So let's just go backwards here. X-Men 170 in a 9.4 is $33. And I would have lost $2.53 had I got that book graded as is. And Fantastic Four, $2.59. That one has value in a 9.4 at $80, and I would have added an additional almost $48 to my collection if that book lands at a 9.4. Fantastic Four 254 is only $38 with a $6 value add. And you can see too here, the summarized version, why is it so highly negative? I start from ground zero, which is the cost to grade the book. So if for some reason I spent the money to get the book graded and it was returned to me with no grade, that's kind of my out-of-pocket cost. Obviously, that's not realistic. I may adjust this to say, if there's no grade, put the CGC profit as 0, or at least just adjust it for the cost of the book. But I like to put the entire amount in there so that if we look at ASM 195 again, where I paid $34 for that book, that again, I'm already out $62 if I want to consider grading it. So I need to see it. I like to see that large amount of money, and then figure out, is that book really worth grading? let's continue on, and I will jump around here. Let's go back to ASM 170. Again, that was a $24 cost, but a $7.58 fair market value. And a 9.4, it does have value at 78, and it would have been a $26 value add if that book does hit at a 9.8. Let's jump back to ASM 251, 9.4, $61, almost a $15 value add if I get that one graded. How about, let's do this one, ASM 241, 9.4 is $50, $12.48 potential profit or value added here. How about ASM 253 and a 9.4, $93, good one. So this one is almost $54, and that started to turn. I have two more books left here, and that turned the column AB, that summarized CGC profit, to a positive. So already, if these books are all truly near mint as a 9.4 by industry standards, I've already looked to gain over $44, and I have two books left to go to add in here. So this is why I'm buying books in this way, because if I just take the stack, I trust the seller, I don't even want to bother grading, right? So let's just say I don't believe in my own skills to grade, and I believe in the seller because the data over time is showing me that this particular seller sends me near mint books. I could almost just take the books and just check, did I receive them, send them to CGC, and they should all come back a 9.4. Again, it's not going to happen. It's an average, and obviously all books are not alike. So some of these, if they got less than a 9.4, are absolutely worthless, whereas others have value in the 9.4. And then, like I said, if ASM 170 came back in a 9.8, that's not as exciting as ASM 170, 173, or 195. So I understand the relativity of it. But again, in theory, if you're gambling and you're gambling low risk, high reward, you could do that. So that's kind of the concept that I wanted to explain. What's in my head is I'm buying these books, even if I don't spend the time grading them myself, could they be valuable if sent off for grading? Okay, let's get on with it here. Let's try the 195. I don't even believe that's a 9.4, but if it were, it's $129 in a 9.4. So that's a $67 value add. Lastly, ASM 173 and a 9.4 is $99 with $44. So overall, a $272.25 potential value add if I sent all of these books into CGC and they all hit in a 9.4. Now, some of these are going to require a little bit of attention and care, some CPR with some pressing. Others maybe 9.6s or 9.8s right out of the gate. I want to go ahead and flip all of these to 9.8 so you can see this is part of the fun. So let's just do that. Again, we'll just kind of go from the bottom up. Well, in a 9.8, it's $86. So it was worth a shot at $4.50. Hopefully I get my money refunded and then I can just clear this off the ledger. Maybe I'll order again and he can include it. X-Men 170 in a 9.8 is over $100. That's something else that I target. I look at that century mark and I go, are any of these books, do they have the potential to be over $100? That's just a nice round number that I can, it's easy math to figure out, are you profiting from this sort of process? So it's $117 in a 9.4 or 9.8, excuse me, nothing to sneeze at. 9.8 for these two Fantastic Four. You see these jump up significantly here. $169 for 259, 225 for 254. So those actually flipped in value. But again, tremendous value in a 9.8. And then 253, 9.8. It's rising because of the Kingpin now being in the MCU. So that's $172 there. 251 jumps to almost 300 at 275. 241, 175. I think you see the pattern here. 320. That elusive 195, which is not a book that's really, I think, talked about. It's I mean, Black Cat's second appearance. It has value, but nobody's on the internet and social media hyping it like they are Timeless #1. All right, 173. jumps to $700 in a 9/8, and 170 is 162. So again, they're not all 9/8, but this is the fun part. It's a range. It's the end range. So the end range of this potential order is $1,977.25. That's not happening. I understand that. But this is why I'm targeting these books, right? Because it has the potential value if they were to slip by the seller as a near mint copy and maybe they're a 9/8, or if they have the ability to be improved with a press, maybe they're a 9/6 with a little bit of a wrinkle or a curl that can be pressed out with a quick press, instant 9/8. That's why I do this. And again, just kind of going back to show you the low end. So we're at almost 2,000 on the high end, and you'd hope that some of these are in the 9/4 range, and you have $272 on the low. So not a bad range here for this particular order. I would say this is probably not the most exciting order. It doesn't have, the first appearance of Galactus or something jumping out at you, or missed minutes. There's nothing in here that's just like screaming crazy goodness, but just a lot of, those late 70s, early 80s, Bronze Age, Copper Age Marvel Comics that I can get anywhere from $4 to, $20, $30. I usually try and buy one or two of those books per order. I try not to flood my order with those $30 books. Obviously, that adds up. But a lot of these value adds where they're sneaky. How to explain it? But like not under the radar, but like that Fantastic Four in a tough cover. You'll find that there's value there because there are fewer 9/8s of those out on the market, and that's what that value jump at a 9/8 is telling you without even looking at the census. So this is where you can use this information and use this data accordingly, and look to target those value books instead of just looking at them as filler for your collection. I know I say that sometimes, like I don't have this issue and wanted to fill out a run, but I'm filling out the value, and that's what I'm doing here. So I hope you enjoyed this. Appreciate you watching. Happy collecting, and see you next time.